You have 14 days, not a metaphor, not a dramatic opener to grab your attention. A literal, mathematical, unavoidable 14-day countdown. And when that clock hits 0, the price of everything you buy, everything you eat, and everything that runs on energy is going to explode in a way that will make the last 3 years of inflation feel like a minor inconvenience. Here's what just happened, and why those 14 days matter more than anything else happening on the planet right now. Iran just destroyed the American command center in Bahrain. Not damaged, not disrupted, destroyed. The nerve center coordinating U.S. military operations across the entire Gulf region, gone. And in the same strike package, Iran hit Bahrain's oil facilities, fuel storage, processing infrastructure, the physical machinery that moves Gulf oil from the ground to the tankers to the global market. But that's just the opening act. In the last 48 hours, Iran has also struck Abu Dhabi's airport, hit the Fujairah oil depot, one of the most strategically critical fuel storage facilities in the world, attacked Qatar's LNG infrastructure, hit Kuwait, struck UAE positions, and continued pounding every American military installation it can reach across the Gulf. This isn't a military campaign anymore. This is a surgical economic demolition. Iran isn't trying to win a battle. Iran is trying to strangle the global economy until the world forces America to leave. And they have found the exact pressure point that makes every country on Earth, not just the ones being bombed, feel the pain within weeks. Here's the mechanism, and pay close attention because this is the most important thing you'll hear today. Right now, the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed to oil traffic. Ships aren't moving. Tankers are anchored. The oil that Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE pump out of the ground every single day has nowhere to go, so it gets stored, pumped into massive holding tanks on land while the world waits for the strait to reopen. Those storage tanks are almost full. Maximum capacity, 10 to 14 days away. The moment those tanks hit capacity, the Gulf states have only one option: stop pumping. You cannot produce oil you have nowhere to put. Production shuts down, and the second Gulf production shuts down, the global oil supply doesn't tighten. It collapses. Demand stays exactly where it is. 7 billion people still need fuel, heat, food transportation, manufacturing, but the supply side just fell off a cliff. Oil analysts are currently modeling price scenarios of $50 to $80 per barrel above current levels in a matter of days after production stops. Not weeks, days. Because markets don't wait for the physical shortage to arrive. They price it in the moment the shutdown becomes inevitable. And here's how that hits you personally right now, wherever you are in the world. Every $10 increase in oil prices adds roughly $400 to $500 per year to the average household's cost of living. Not just at the pump, that's the visible part. The invisible part is that oil is embedded in literally everything. The plastic in your phone, the fertilizer that grew your food, the truck that delivered it, the electricity that powered the store, the packaging it came in. Oil is in the supply chain of almost every physical object you interact with daily. Now imagine oil doesn't go up $10. Imagine it goes up $50, $60, $80. Samsung can't manufacture phones the same way. South Korean factories slow down. Japanese automakers get squeezed. Chinese industrial output, which already has enormous pressure on it, starts contracting. European manufacturers who were already struggling hit a wall. And American consumers, who were already stretched after 3 straight years of elevated inflation, walk into stores and find prices that make today look cheap. This is what Iran designed this campaign to do. Not to win a conventional war. Iran knows it can't out-military the United States in a straight fight, but to make the cost of American presence so unbearable for the entire world that global pressure forces Washington's hand. And the most terrifying part of all of this? It's working. Countries that have never touched their strategic oil reserves, emergency stockpiles saved exclusively for wartime, are cracking them open right now. Japan, South Korea, China. These aren't symbolic gestures. When countries start burning through war reserves, it means they've already calculated that normal supply channels are compromised and won't recover quickly. The world has officially entered oil crisis territory for the first time since 1973, and we are 14 days from it, getting dramatically, irreversibly worse. But here's what nobody is telling you about what Trump just said he's going to do about it. Trump just told the world he needs 100 days. Let that land for a second in the context of everything we just covered. Oil storage filling up in 14 days, global reserves being cracked open, Gulf cities that were the safest places on Earth 6 months ago, now under active missile and drone attack. South Korea can't manufacture. Japan is burning emergency fuel. China is furious. The entire global supply chain is fracturing in real time. And the man in charge of the world's most powerful military just said, publicly, he wants to keep this war going for 100 more days. Remember what he said at the beginning? 4 weeks. A clean, decisive 4-week campaign. Shock and awe. Iran collapses. Mission accomplished. Nobel Prize conversation begins. That was the plan. That's what the advisors promised. That's what the intelligence briefing supposedly showed. Then reality showed up. Iran didn't collapse in 4 weeks. Iran adapted, escalated, and started hitting targets that nobody in the original planning session apparently took seriously. Oil infrastructure, command centers, Gulf state civilian airports, the economic arteries of the entire region. The 4-week timeline evaporated, and rather than acknowledging the strategy failed and finding an exit, the response was to extend the timeline. 4 weeks became 100 days. Here's why that comparison to Ukraine should freeze your blood. Ukraine was supposed to be a 3-day Russian operation. Remember that? 3 days? It's now been over 3 years, with hundreds of thousands dead and an entire generation of Ukrainian and Russian young men buried or broken. The Ukraine war's total economic damage to the global system, supply chains, energy prices, food costs, reconstruction, runs into the trillions. And this conflict, according to the economic modeling being done right now, has the potential to cause more damage in its first 6 months than Ukraine caused in 3 years. Because Ukraine didn't touch oil. Ukraine didn't threaten the Strait of Hormuz. Ukraine didn't strike Gulf infrastructure, serving 20% of the world's energy supply. This war hits the actual engine room of the global economy, and it hits it directly. Now let's talk about the threat Iran just made that changes everything. When Trump announced he would personally decide who becomes Iran's next supreme leader, installing an American-approved replacement after regime change, Iran's response was immediate and unambiguous. If the United States attempts regime change in Iran, Iran will strike Dimona. For anyone who doesn't know what Dimona is, it's Israel's nuclear facility in the Negev desert. The facility where Israel's estimated 90 nuclear warheads are believed to be manufactured and stored. A strike on Dimona doesn't just kill people near the site. Depending on what's stored there and how a strike unfolds, the fallout, literal and geopolitical, would be catastrophic beyond any current scenario. Iran just put that on the table, clearly, publicly, not through back channels or diplomatic whispers, directly on the record for the world to hear. And here's what makes this different from every previous Middle East threat. Iran has demonstrated in the last 3 weeks that it can actually reach the targets it threatens. This isn't posturing. The command center in Bahrain is gone. The oil depot in Fujairah was hit. The carrier group retreated. Iran has built a track record of following through, which means this threat carries weight that previous Iranian statements didn't. Meanwhile, Trump's stated goal has shifted from neutralizing Iran's nuclear program to something far more expansive: total regime change. Installing American-aligned leadership in Tehran, taking control of Iran's oil and gas resources. He even compared it openly to Venezuela, a country where American interests have pushed for leadership change tied directly to resource access. This is not counterterrorism. This is not nuclear nonproliferation. This is colonial resource acquisition dressed in national security language. And every country in the global south watching this, every nation that has oil, gas, or strategic resources, is filing this moment away as a lesson about what American partnership eventually costs. The Gulf states built their entire security model on American protection. They hosted the bases, they bought the weapon systems, they aligned their foreign policy, and the result is that their airports are getting hit, their oil facilities are burning, their workers can't sleep, and the American president who was supposed to protect them just told them he needs 100 more days to finish a war he started on their doorstep without their genuine consent. The deal they made with American power is now visibly, painfully, publicly broken. And the question every Gulf leader is sitting with tonight, quietly, carefully, without saying it on camera, is the most consequential question in modern Middle Eastern history. What comes after America? Let's talk about what the Gulf used to be, because this matters. This context is the thing that makes what's happening right now so genuinely devastating, not just strategically, not just economically, but humanly. 4 o'clock in the morning. A woman walking alone through a Gulf city street. No fear, no danger, no need for security or escort or a second thought. That was the reality of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, Manama, cities that became the modern world's most remarkable argument for what peace and prosperity could look like when built deliberately and maintained carefully. Millions of people from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, the Philippines, across Africa, across the world, they went to the Gulf because the Gulf worked. Because wages were real, safety was real, and the remittances they sent home kept families functional in countries where the local economy couldn't provide. These weren't wealthy expatriates in serviced apartments. These were construction workers, nurses, drivers, domestic workers, small business owners, ordinary people who found in the Gulf something their home countries couldn't give them: stability. That stability is gone. Tonight, those same people can't sleep. They're watching alert apps on their phones at 2 a.m. They're calling their families back home and hearing the question they don't know how to answer. Should you come home? The flights are increasingly disrupted. The streets they once walked safely feel different now. The city that felt permanent feels fragile. And here's the brutal irony at the center of this catastrophe. Iran doesn't actually want to destroy the Gulf states. Iran has said this explicitly, and the targeting patterns confirm it. They are not trying to kill Pakistani workers or Bangladeshi nurses or Filipino domestic staff. They are trying to destroy the American military infrastructure that those countries unwillingly host. The bases, the command centers, the runways American bombers use to strike Iranian positions. The Gulf workers are collateral to a conflict they had no vote in and no voice over. Now, let's talk about where this actually ends. Because every conflict ends somewhere, and understanding the endpoint is the only way to understand what decisions matter right now. Iran has put a specific, concrete, publicly stated peace condition on the table: remove American military bases from the region. That's it. That's the offer. No reparations demanded, no permanent territorial claims, no regime change requirements for Gulf states. Just American military infrastructure leaves, and Iran stops firing. Compare that to what Trump wants: 100 days of war, regime change in Tehran, American installed leadership in a country of 90 million people, and control over Iranian oil and gas resources. One of these positions has a realistic endpoint. The other is a fantasy built on a 2003 Iraq war logic that history has already graded, and the grade was catastrophic failure. Here's the economic reality of what 100 days of this war actually means in concrete numbers. If Gulf oil production shuts down in 14 days as storage capacity maxes out, and stays down for the duration of a 100-day campaign, the global economy absorbs an oil shock with no modern precedent. The 1973 oil embargo, which caused recessions across the Western world, triggered stagflation that lasted a decade, and permanently restructured the global energy market. It was caused by a partial disruption from fewer producers over a shorter period. This is total Gulf disruption. All producers. Extended timeline. With active attacks on the infrastructure needed to restart production even after the conflict ends. Pipelines don't fix themselves overnight. Storage facilities that have been struck need rebuilding. Technical staff who evacuated need to return. The damage to production capacity could take months to reverse even after a ceasefire, meaning the pain doesn't stop when the shooting stops. Recessions don't care about politics. They don't care who started the war or whose cause was just. They hit working people first and hardest. The people with the least cushion, the least savings, the least ability to absorb a 40% increase in their grocery bill on top of everything else they've already absorbed since 2020. The people who made this war will eat fine throughout it. The people who had no say in it will feel it in ways that reshape their lives for years. That's the reality underneath all the military briefings and geopolitical analysis. And here's the final honest truth that this whole situation comes down to. The Gulf was proof that the world could build something better. That regions historically defined by conflict could choose a different path. Development, trade, connection, safety. The cities built there weren't perfect, but they were real. They worked. Millions of lives were measurably better because of what got built across that region over 40 years. All of it is now being held hostage to a war that didn't have to happen, fought over resources that could have been managed diplomatically, escalated by a leader whose own country is turning against him in real-time polling. 14 days until the oil storage fills. 100 days until Trump says the war can even be discussed for ending. And a world full of ordinary people, workers, families, small business owners, children in school, paying the price for decisions made by men who will never spend a single night in a shelter. History will remember this moment. The question is what it remembers us doing about it.